I'm really worried about the Denver Broncos offensive line. I mean, I'm really worried about the Denver Broncos offensive line. And there's one player in particular who I am concerned about the most. So the Denver Broncos, after a combination of injuries and just poor play last season, they trotted out one of the worst offensive lines in the entire NFL. They most certainly held the honor of having the worst offensive line coach in the NFL last year in Butch Barry, although technically they could be tied down there with Matt Patricia as well because he was technically considered the Patriots offensive line coach last year. But regardless, last season the Denver Broncos trotted out a bottom tier offensive line, and George Paton and Sean Payton wanted to make sure that that did not happen this season. So they went out and spent nearly $150 million to upgrade this offensive line. They gave right tackle Mike McGlinchey a 5-year, $87.5 million deal. They gave left guard Ben Powers a 4-year, $51.5 million deal. And to shore up their swing tackle situation, they brought back Cam Fleming on a 1-year, $4 million deal. Entering 2023, the Broncos have the 4th most expensive starting offensive line in the entire NFL. But when you look at how this unit has been playing over the first 2 weeks of training camp, they sure as hell don't look like the 4th highest paid offensive line in football. You know it's bad Broncos country when Lloyd Cushenberry is probably the offensive lineman that I have the least concern with right now. Him and Ben Powers. And anybody who has heard me talk about Lloyd Cushenberry on this channel, you know that I have significant issues with him, and he was my biggest concern on the offensive line heading into this season. Now, he's probably one of my least concerns on the offensive line, and that's saying something. My biggest concern is most definitely Garrett Bowles. I don't know if Garrett Bowles isn't 100% back from his broken ankle that he suffered in October of last year in Week 5 against the Colts, or if he's just significantly regressed all the way back to 2017-2018 Garrett Bowles. That's how bad he's looked out at training camp. The dude looks almost stiff out there, which leads me to believe that he's not 100% back from his injury yet. He's been given a couple of rest days as well, so that would probably incline where he is health-wise. But still, when he's been on the field, the dude has looked rough out there. He is getting manhandled by our edge rushers. Nick Bonito is manhandling him, Randy Gregory is manhandling him, and Frank Clark is manhandling him. It has not looked pretty at all for Garrett Bowles out there. The dude is having some real issues getting out wide into his kick stance, and that's causing him to get beat by speed moves around the edge on really consistent bases. And he's held many times in training camp. He's also been the cause of many false start penalties in training camp this year. Garrett Bowles is looking like a flat-out liability at left tackle right now. He's literally looking like the Garrett Bowles that was chastised in 2017 and 2018 for how poorly he played. He looks like Garrett Holds out there again. I really hate saying that because Garrett Bowles is somebody that I have a lot of respect for as a man and as a leader in that locker room. But right now, his play just is not up to the level that we need him to be our starting left tackle. In fact, guys, there's a non-zero chance that Cam Fleming could be our starting left tackle at some point this season, and not because of an injury to Garrett Bowles. It's been that bad. It really has. I'm concerned about where Garrett Bowles is right now in his injury rehab, and I'm also just concerned about mentally where he's at right now. He had a very strong end to the 2019 season in his first year under Mike Munchak, and that continued into his second year under Mike Munchak in 2020 when he made a second-team All-Pro list for the first time in his career and actually finally looked like the left tackle that Denver drafted him to become. Unfortunately, in 2021, he kind of regressed a little bit, although he still provided competent level offensive line play. But in 2022, in the first year under Butch Barry, things just completely fell apart with him. And in the first few games of the year before he got injured, he looked replacement level. He really did. And part of that I wanted to put on Butch Barry initially because he literally was the worst offensive line coach in football last year. He would leave sticky notes in players' locker rooms to tell them how bad they performed that week. He wouldn't directly communicate with his players and did everything he could to alienate his relationship with his players. So I wanted to basically put Garrett Bowles' regression last season before he got injured on Butch Berry. But now we've got a competent offensive line coach in the building, or at least a competent offensive line coach on paper in Zach Strief. Definitely somebody who should at least be able to relate to Garrett Bowles because he's a former player who, similarly to Bowles, had some struggles early on in his career but was able to put it together over time. Unfortunately, right now, man, I don't know if things mentally aren't clicking for Bowles, but physically, he is looking like a really, really rough shell of himself, quite frankly, out there. I've seen Garrett Bowles in 2020 produce high-level offensive line play, but right now, I worry that that may have been an anomaly and that this is just who Garrett Bowles is. I really hope that's not the case and that he shakes the rust off and bounces back to the 2020 level Bowles this season. I wouldn't hope for that more than anything because I love Garrett Bowles, the human being. He is somebody that I relate to a lot, man. I really do. He is somebody that I have a lot of respect for, but right now he's not playing at the level that we need him to play at. Now, it's not just Garrett Bowles that has me concerned about our offensive line. Mike McGlinchey, who was brought in here to finally stop the revolving door at right tackle that's been an issue for us ever since 2014, he has also looked pretty rough out there. I am going to give Mike McGlinchey a little bit of the benefit of the doubt because he was out of training camp for the first couple of days because of a death in the family, and apparently it was somebody who was really, really close to him. So mentally, I'm not sure where Mike McGlinchey is right now, but he has struggled out there as well. He's committed some holding penalties. He's gotten beat off the edge. He certainly doesn't look like one of the highest paid offensive tackles in football right now. And that's concerning because, again, Mike McGlinchey was brought in here to finally stop that carousel at right tackle. And thus far, he's looking like a replacement level player as well. And I'm concerned about that. With Quinn Miners, there is a little bit of level of concern there because he has gotten beat a couple of times, but out of Garrett Bowles, Mike McGlinchey, and Quinn Miners, he's the one that I have the least amount of concerns with. Lloyd Cushenberry, he's looked good. I really can't complain too much about what I've seen out of Lloyd Cushenberry. He's gotten manhandled a couple of times by Zach Allen, but that's kind of what you expect out of Lloyd Cushenberry at this point. He is who he is, a very smart player who physically is going to get manhandled sometimes just because he doesn't quite have that play strength. But overall, he's held up for the most part. And Ben Powers, nothing but good to say about him, really. I don't think I've seen Ben Powers get beat more than maybe once or twice. I'm not concerned at all about Ben Powers. He easily looks like the best offensive lineman out of that unit. And Cam Fleming, he looks like a swing tackle out there. He's provided some good high-level play, but he's also gotten manhandled a couple of times by guys such as Nick Benito and Randy Gregory when he's filled in for Garrett Bowles. So right now, we have got the fourth most expensive offensive line in football, and we don't look like we've got the fourth most expensive offensive line in football. It's really concerning seeing this poor level of offensive line play, and this is before we're going full speed in practice. Right now, with pads on, we're only going about 75-85% speed. If the Broncos are going out there at full speed and the offensive line's getting manhandled like this, I'm really, really concerned just about where things sit right now, guys. This offensive line is going to have to do a complete 360 in their overall performance for me to have some level of confidence in them going into week 1 of the regular season. Because right away, this team is going to get tested. We've got Max Crosby that we've got to deal with in week 1, and then week 2, we've got Chase Young and Montez Sweat coming to town on the edge. And that's not including the interior defensive linemen that we're going to have to deal with in those first couple of weeks. Washington's defensive interior with guys such as Jonathan Allen and Daron Payne, that terrifies me. It really does. So, overall, guys, the Broncos are going to have some big tests for their offensive line in the first couple of weeks of the regular season. And based on how they've looked in training camp, I'm worried that they're going to flunk that test miserably. All right, Broncos country, what is your level of concern ranging from 1 to 10 on the offensive line right now? I'm not going to lie, I'm starting to push a 6 or a 7 because I have not seen any level or any indication that things are going to turn around for this offensive line. I'm hoping something changes in the last part of training camp, but right now I'm really concerned. But let me know where you stand right now on the offensive line, guys. Drop those comments down below. I would love to hear your thoughts as always. Be sure to leave a like on this video as well as subscribe and ring the bell so these videos appear in your notification feed. I would really appreciate it, guys. Those are two free and easy ways to show your support. Helps tell YouTube's algorithm to push us out to fellow members of Broncos country just like you and me. And until next time, guys, this has been another episode of Denver Broncos Syndicate. I'm your host, Gage Madrid, saying peace out.